Hello, my name is Simon Jones, and I'm here to introduce the keynote speaker today. Throughout the history of the world, there have been atrocities committed against people of different races, ethnicities, and religions. Every story of survival is a blessing and a realization of the atrocities that we perpetrate upon each other. Today we have the absolute pleasure of listening to Ms. Yanina Cywinska and her amazing story of triumph of spirit. Thank you.
These pictures were taken by Nazis after the atrocities, and this is me at 8 and me at 16 when I was liberated. All these pictures were taken by Nazis, and this is a picture watercolor that I did when I was about 19. It's my brother being dressed by Nazis, our house on fire, and me down below. And this picture is "Eat Your Heart Out, Hitler, I Made It." By now you know my name is Yanina Cywinska. I was born in Warsaw, Poland. My father was a doctor, and my mother was just a mother. And they sent me to ballet school in Kirov for 4 years to learn how to hold my pinky so I can marry a millionaire and they can be supported all their life. A telegram arrived in St. Petersburg fetching me home. It ordered me to come home. And as I got off the train, Igor with 4 horses and a buggy in those days, transportation, I asked him what was going on, why am I coming home in the middle of the semester, and he said, I can't tell you, you have to talk to your parents. When we arrived at the house, for some reason I looked at the doors that we had with gold knobs, and I thought, oh, how beautiful, but I had a very eerie feeling. We sit down that night, and my father said that he was ordered to operate on a Nazi in Warsaw ghetto. When he went there, he saw what they were doing with the Jews, the starving people, the jumping out of the buildings, when the buildings were set on fire and machine gunned down. So he said, we're going underground. And with nobody else goes except the family, because he didn't want any squealers. So we were going in and out underground, bringing in ammunition for rebellion and food and medicine. And one day we got caught. As we were coming out of the sewer on the street, the Nazis were standing all around, and we were caught and arrested and then sent home. We were home eating dinner, and my father was playing the piano, my mother played violin. I played anything they gave me, drums. Anyway, my father was explaining the life of Chopin, and I was very engrossed in the romantic story, when suddenly our doors were pushed open, wide open, and they were standing 10 Nazis with their legs spread out, and the guns aimed at us, yelling at us, rouse, rouse, get out, get out. I was 10 years of age, and I walked up to him, to the Nazis, and said, you can't do this. My father will get you. This is our house. And the Nazi grabbed my father by the collar and took the gun barrel and smashed his face, and he was lying down bleeding on the floor. So I ran behind my mother and hid. They marched us out in a wagon where they had wire windows. My mother started crying for pictures and for personal things, and the first time I ever heard the word, the Nazi said, you vermin of the earth, Jew lover, get in there. And he pushed my mother in, and all of us in that wagon, while they emptied the house of paintings and carpets, chandeliers, and then when it was empty, they poured gasoline all over and burned the house down, and we were taken to a jailhouse that was bombed. No water, no nothing. In that jail, in the middle of the night, my family was together, but they came and fetched me. They got me out and outside, and we were marched to the woods. The marching was 10 people here, 10 people here, Nazis. Each 10 people had 2 Nazis with all kinds of guns and bayonets to hit you with or anything. We were then marched into the woods. On the left side was all pine trees. On the right side was all fields with haystacks. Now they made us dig ditches. Night and day we dug ditches. No water, no food. If anybody died, they just dragged them and threw them in that ditch. When I was standing there, after we finished digging ditches, I was standing there, my back to the ditch, and the Jewish lady had a baby. She was squishing the baby, and she was kissing the baby, and she was making the baby laugh. While I noticed that her right heel, the dirt was moving. So I went right behind her like this to stop her from falling with the baby when the machine guns went off. And they shot everybody, and her body fell on top of me. I was behind her, so I didn't receive the bullet. They kept bringing in the Jews, lining them up, and machine gunned them down, and they'd throw them in the ditch, or they'd fall in the ditch. Midnight came, and I heard a beer barrel polka or something in the woods. The Nazis were eating the dinner. It was getting dark, and I was lying there. The Nazis usually go by and see if anybody's alive, and then they shoot them. So I opened my mouth and turned my eyes upside down, pretending that I was dead. So when they were having their dinner, I decided to get out, but I couldn't. I was not only small, but there were lots of bodies, parts, and dust, and it was very slippery. So I decided, exhausted, I'd pull the bodies by the legs and make a stairway. So I made a stairway, and I crawled out of the ditch. When I crawled out of the ditch, I looked to the left where they were dancing and singing and eating, and I looked to the right, and on like a dog, I was on my fours, going the opposite direction from Nazis because I was afraid they were going to shoot me. So I ended up exhausted, hungry, under the haystack. In Poland, we have haystack on sticks, and inside it's empty for air. So I crawled in there and passed out. The next thing I knew is a guy was pulling on my hair, screaming at me. He had the hay thing, and he stuck it right in my thigh. And I screamed out, and he pulled me out and said, "Who are you? Who are you? Who are you?" And I was scared. He says, "Are you a runaway? What are you? Are you a Jew?" And I said, "What is a Jew?" And he said, "Okay, I'll take you to my wife." He brought me to the house, and the wife went bananas. "She is Jewish." "Oh yes, she is blonde hair, but blue eyes. But I know she's Jewish. If we are found to shelter her, we're going to all get killed. So get her out of here." So they drove me back to Warsaw to the jail. I reunited with my father and my mother and the whole family. Next morning, they marched us out of the jailhouse and lined up again. You couldn't see no end, no beginning of Nazis guarding us. Marched us just down to the train station and ordered us to get in the train station, in the train. And in the train, you couldn't see anything except for the wood that was worn out, light, night and day. And in this train, the Jewish woman died from heart attack, It was stench. We had no water, no place to go to the toilet. And the Jewish father had twin boys, and he killed the twin boys, saying that no Nazi is going to touch my family. We arrived in this area. The train suddenly stopped, and we were all blindfolded, and the Nazis were ordering people left, right, left, right, left, right. I ended up on the right side with my mother, father, brother, and cousins. And these were the people that were going to work, and these are the people on the left that were going to be killed in the gas chamber immediately. As we were walking, there were sticks on both sides and beautiful branches, and I pulled one out and said, "Papa, it doesn't have any roots." And he says, "No, they made it pretty so you can be happy, because now you're going to get food and you're going to get a shower, bath those days, and so forth." And as they marched us forward, there was this huge gate saying, "Arbeit macht frei," means work makes you free. So my father got excited more and more. And, oh yes, we're going to get food. And they marched us into a place just about the size of this, no roof. There were concrete walkway down. And they ordered us to undress. And I started to panic because I said, "Papa, I'm not going to undress in front of them." So Nazi pulled a Jewish woman and stood her up and shot her and said, "Anyone else wants to not undress?" So we started scrambling to undress, but couldn't get fast enough to be undressed. So they marched us down this walkway with iron gates, and the place was very close ceiling. And my father said, see, we're going to get a shower now. And so you go in and you get a shower and we get food and blah, blah, blah. And you get to work. When they shut the doors, I panicked and started crying for my father. And I said, "Papa, where are you? Where are you?" His hand reached to mine, and he was grasping my hand and said, "It's okay, you're going to get showered. Don't get upset. You're going to get showered and we're going to eat." Suddenly I noticed that his hand was slipping out of my hand, and his eyes were turning upside down, and the people were panicked because whatever came out, like those little lights there, it was not shower, it was gas. And I did not consume enough gas because the bodies fell on top of me, and the first gas was the carbon monoxide. I just passed out. The Jewish woman, Gerda, pulled me out of the gas chamber and by the legs, and I was still breathing, so she gave me mouth-to-mouth resuscitation and said, "You're going to go to work." She took off my pretty clothes and took out of dead body a striped outfit and put it on me, and she said, "The more you work, the more you live." So I stood there asking, "What do I do? What do I do?" And she said, "You go in there and you pull the bodies by the legs and put them on these racks. And then the men come and take them and dump them in the ditches or in the ovens." So I was pulling out the bodies. I pulled out a little baby and was still breathing. I said, "Oh, Gerda gave him mouth-to-mouth, I'll do it to the baby." So I was holding the baby and kissing the baby. I was so excited. It was so cute. And I was telling the baby that everything is going to be all right, blah, 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 when I felt this cold instrument on my shoulder, and the Nazi blew out the baby's head off. And I was standing there holding the body, bleeding, shaking. And Gerda said, "Get rid of it, get rid of it, get to work. Don't get teary." So I went in the gas chamber and pulled out my mother by her legs And when I pulled her out, I said, Mama, I want to get out of here. I don't like it here. I want to go back to my school. I want to go back to my bedroom with my dolls and my playing instruments and so forth. And the girl screamed at me, she is dead. She can't do anything for you. And I said, what is dead? And that's how, and so then she took the body of my mother away from me and put it on the rack, and whatever they did with it, I don't know. My work in Auschwitz was to dispose of clothes. You undress everybody, the Jews came in, you take the jewelry, put it in the bucket. You take the underwear, only the good silk ones, this pile, blouses, pants, this and that. And you undress them, and then I felt like screaming and saying, you know, that's not a shower. And one woman started to screaming, you're going to die. That's not a shower. They lied. So the Nazis pulled her out against the wall and machine gunned her down. She was nothing but hamburger. And it said, everybody shut up. So as I was pulling these bodies, that was my job. My next job was experimental ward, where they take the Jewish man and you have to tie him to the chair, back, arms, legs, everything. And they were experimenting how much stress a human being can take. So they would gouge out the eyes, and cut the skin, pull out the nails, and I had to stand there. As soon as I saw white bubbles, they cut out the skull. As soon as I saw the white bubbles going, the doctor, I'm supposed to call the doctor, because that was the limit that the human being can take, stress. That was experiment. I'd have to drag the man out. If he was dead, if he was alive, I'd drag him out, put him in the courtyard, and the Nazis would just pistol shoot them if they're still alive. And I'd have to tie up next one. As the time passed, I was on the grounds, cleaning the grounds. My job was to sweep the grounds, get rid of dirt. And as I was sweeping the grounds, the Nazi was kicking a woman that was already swollen from starvation, bleeding through the mouth and ears. And he was kicking her in the breast, in the stomach, in the womb, with his boots. And we're not supposed to speak up. And I spoke up and said, what are you doing? She's already dying, you know. And so the Nazi ordered me to be punished for speaking to him. They take you out and tie your hands up like this, hang you up and torture you until you die. This one particular guy, 18 years old, was to beat me, to punish me, and do that to me. But he said, I'm not going to hang you, I'm going to beat you on the side. His name was Hans, and I want you to scream every time I hit the ground. And so I screamed so that his colleagues would know that he was punishing me. He fell on top of me and started crying and asking forgiveness and said, you know what? He said, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be a Nazi, but it's mandatory. My parents will be arrested and killed if I refuse. So he was lying on top of me, and I turned on my back and looked at him, blue eyes, blonde hair. At that time, I was running through, the day before, I was running through the barracks, and I was screaming, I was shot. I was bleeding and I was shot, and I wanted the women to help me. And they all ended up laughing. So I thought, how can they laugh when I'm shot and bleeding? And so they said to me, you know what? You are a woman today. You got your period. The reason I'm telling you that is because that's when I realized next day why I looked at Hans' blue eyes, Nazi, And I fell in love. The first time as a teenager, I felt the opposite sex. Hans kept giving me chocolates and food and apples and whatever he could get in his pockets, he would bring me daily. And one day, Hans just disappeared. And then he came back and he said, you know, we have nurses that are going to go to the village and take some Jews for experimental work. And you can be dressed, you speak with German, so we'll dress you up as a nurse. Don't talk too much, don't pull out your sleeve so they can't see your number. And she said, and you go with them. Hans arranged so that I would go with those nurses and advised me not to speak to them too much. So when we arrived in the village and delivered the men in the hospital, they wanted me to go for coffee, and I said, "Nein, I'm not going for coffee. I'm just going to sit here and think." So they went for coffee, and Hans arranged for me to go to a motel or inn to pick up my passport and my fake passport and money to escape and grab a train to Heidelberg, Germany. Well, I got to be a girl, you know. I decided to, in a bakery, I got the pastry called Napoleon that my father loved so much, and I stuffed 2 pieces of them in my mouth. And as I walked by, there was this window with a beautiful, beautiful red dress there. Oh, you know what happened to me. Oh, Hans will love me. He will marry me if I get this dress. So I walk in the shop and started undressing, and the woman screamed out, "You are a Jew, you are a Jew." And she called the Nazis, and they picked me up, and back to Auschwitz I went. In the meantime, Hans disappeared. I don't know what happened to him. This one German woman came in on a horse, and the horse stepped right just before hitting me. It just went like this. And she said, "You vermin of the earth, Jew lover in your family, you are too good. The bullet is too good for you, and the gas chamber is too good for you. I'll show you what I'll do with you." So she beat me up to a pulp and then threw me on the ground, took the booth and knocked out all my teeth except 3. Yes, I have both teeth. And she said next day she'd come and do again, and I prayed to God, "Please God," I was all cut up and bleeding and a big gash over my eye opening, and I said, "God, please help me here." Well, she came and beat me up again, and I lost my faith in God. I got angry. I said, "God, you're not here." So I started telling the women that I'm going to dance in Paris as the sugar plum from Nutcracker Suite. And I would be practicing the pliés and arm movements in the barracks. That became my reason to live, is I wanted to be a ballerina. And as Hans disappeared, I don't know what happened to him, but suddenly this woman disappeared. And thank God, she disappeared. I never saw her again. The Russians were coming, and they were shooting, and leaflets were falling, "We'll save you, we'll save you." So the Nazis started killing us real fast. If you walk across the ground, they'd shoot you. If you're lying down, they'd come in and shoot you. And gas chambers were just filled because they didn't want witnesses to what they did. And they were blowing up the offices and the paper, where the papers are, and then they gathered what's left of us and marched us to the German camp. Auschwitz was in Poland.